an overhaul to our Concur site. Won't look a lot different to the end user, but what's discussed on the training today will help finance move along and understand and help you guys understand the processes they go through. And Cindy, I'll open it up to you.
Thanks, Melanie. So yeah, with today's system, there's a lot of manual manipulation and things like that on the back end. And so we're trying to streamline the process so that on the back end, we're not having all this administrative burden to try to get stuff posted into our financial system. And so we're going to talk through a little bit of change for ITC. We specifically called ITC into its own training session versus the other services BUs because ITC is a little bit different. And so we want to make sure that we're abundantly clear in the direction that Seneca wants us to go going forward. So since ITC has come into the AFL family, we have always treated Concur transactions as indirect, and I'm going to explain what that means in just a second. And so with this whole Concur revamp project, we were kind of trying to dovetail getting some clear guidance between direct and indirect out with the rollout of the revamp, which is coming, I think, maybe the end of the month, but to be determined when you'll actually see the changes. And like Melanie said, from an end user perspective, it won't be a huge difference, but Tad, who is our outside consultant, is going to walk us through some screenshots of what it will look like from an end user perspective. So let's talk a little bit about terminology, and some of this may be new for some on the call, and others this may just be a good refresher. But there are what we call direct cost and indirect cost. And so with direct cost, that's anything that is directly attributed to a specific project or job budget. Some examples of that would be consumables, techs that are traveling to get to the job sites. So it's between markets or islands or, you know, anything like that. And then we have what's considered indirect costs, and those are typically cover like multiple cost objects or projects. So it's a little more difficult to pin it down to a specific job or project. Some examples of that would be tooling, you know, travel for supervisors and managers and that type of thing. So what I want to be abundantly clear on is, regardless of if you have been putting a project number, if you've been typing it into the existing Concur site today, irregardless of that, finance, we have been pushing it all to indirect cost. So with the new revamp, we want to make sure that we clearly understand what should be going to direct or a job number versus indirect cost, because it will make a difference on how we're going to process it going forward. Okay, but because we're in the middle of a fiscal year, Seneca does not want to change our methodology, because the plan was built based on the assumption that all of the Concur charges would continue to go to indirect. So I've put this on the slide. ITC will delay implementation for project job numbers until FY23. And I tried to just be redundant. So therefore, please do not code anything against an ITC project or job number for the when this revamp comes out, or even today existing. Don't code anything to a project job number in this fiscal year, FY22. And I will try to put a reminder notice on my calendar to send out an email once we get into the new fiscal year to remind everyone to then start putting in project job numbers if they are applicable. Any questions on that? Let me just pause there for a second.
excuse me, Cindy, thank you for conducting this training. This is Susan. So we've been putting cost code, what I call a cost code number in Concur, and we should stop doing that in all instances.
So if today you are putting a project number like 12014-KS-0000, anything like that, that's a ITC job number, we're not gonna use job numbers until we get to FY23. So even when the revamp comes out, and Tad's going to show you the screens, because now the job numbers are going to be a drop down box where you can pick what job number. He'll show you that in just a few minutes, but we do not want to use those job numbers until we get to next fiscal year.
Okay. I'll follow up with a couple of questions with the team. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, are there any, go ahead.
Morning, this is Anka. So I think I would like to clarify Susan's question. So sometimes we do include cost codes, and they're not pointing to a project number, but a BU. So, 838-350-. So I'm not sure how we established those. I know they came from you, but not everyone is using those cost codes. So do we continue to use them for specific items or not?
Yeah, Anka, thank you for clarifying that. So what we will have is, and we're going to talk through this too, is that along with this revamp, certain individuals have been given access to code transactions outside of their home cost or profit center. Okay, so Susan, you, I believe, are on that list. Brianna is on that list. And I'm forgetting some names. Jim Cranston. Who else? Melanie? Ashley Gargas. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And there may be Chris. Yes, Chris Hopper's on there. Thank you, Brantley. And there may be another one or two that we're missing, but the bottom line is there are a set of individuals that will be allowed to charge outside of their cost center or profit center. So if Susan is procuring something that is specific to the, let's say it's, the Austin market, she will be able to pull from the drop down boxes that that Tad's going to show you, and she'll be able to point that charge or that transaction to that appropriate profit cost center, which would be 340 in that instance, the Austin market. Okay, does that make sense? Okay.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. Are there any other questions as it relates to direct and indirect?
Cindy, just real quick, this is Jim.
Hey, Jim.
So just to clarify, when going over the descriptions of direct and indirect, I heard consumables, right, would be an example of a direct cost. Did I hear that tools would be indirect, or would that be direct as well?
Seneca wants tooling to go to indirect.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we specifically went over those examples that you see on the screen, and that was what he had directed. It was consumables would be direct, travel for text. I know Brianna helps process a lot of jump tech travel, when they're jumping between markets, that kind of thing, or, Hawaii with the islands. But yeah, he specifically said tooling or like supervisor manager travel, that would be indirect.
Okay, just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
No, thank you, Jim. Great question. Any other questions at the moment before we move on? Okay, if you think of some, we'll circle back to it. So Tad, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you show us what this is going to look like once the rollout once the revamp comes out. That'd be great.
All right, thank you. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So before we go into the reports, I just want to show you what we were talking about just previously. So if we go to start a report, we're going to have a group of people. I think we've identified around 30 people that are going to have visibility and the ability to change cost centers, divisions, and business units, so to cross-charge. They'll also have the ability to cross-charge via general ledger. So we do have some people that have costs that are going to Great Plains and to Oracle. So those people will have the ability when they create the report to go in here and make those changes for that specific report.
And so Tad, can I just pause right there? So Susan, this will address, I think the question you were asking is that if you're purchasing for someone on someone else's behalf or another market, you will be able to change the drop-down boxes there. Or Jim Cranston, you know, I know you process transactions for other markets than Kansas City. So this is where you would be able to identify where that transaction should go to.
I understand. Thank you.
Okay. Yep. Okay, Tad.
Yeah, and one of the goals of the project is to create some data integrity. So we've actually put in a connected list that when you select a specific company on the left, it will give you the relevant divisions, business units, and departments. So when we go to try to post our extracts on the back end, we have good data and we don't have invalid companies and invalid divisions that could cause an issue and cause manual manipulation.
But for those that are not on that 30 count list or what have you, what will default is their home cost or profit center. Correct?
Correct.
Tad?
Yep. And they won't even have visibility to that. It'll look the same as it does today. All right, so one of the big improvements we've made to the site is at the bottom, we have our project list that is built out. So I think we talked about for the rest of 2022, we want to leave this blank for the ITC group. But once we move into charging direct, that's where you can come in and select the projects associated with the different companies and divisions.
This is Susan again. So if we're not doing this for the rest of fiscal year 22, if we're leaving this blank through March 31, 23, how do the cross charges work? How does this not get charged to my home department?
Because Susan, you are one of those folks that will be able to direct where each transaction gets posted. So you will have the availability to say, this particular transaction needs to go to profit center 340. So Tad, can you just show that example real quick? So it wouldn't be a project number, but she should be able to still record a transaction to a market outside of her home.
Yeah, and I think what I need to do, so if we look at the header, save. So what we've done at the header is where you first identify where you want to charge this report. What I need to do, so we have company, division, business unit, and department. We need another list that has that copy down from here, and that would allow you for parking to charge one specific department. If it's blank, so for 2022, we'd have all of these blanked out. And then we would have whatever you selected for the header in a separate field below here. So you could still charge that specific department, division, business unit, but you're not charging that project specifically. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you. And when does that begin? When does that change take effect?
So we don't have an exact date yet. We're expecting within, what do we think, Melanie, probably the next week or two?
Yes, that's what I would say. We'll have our call today with Andy and IT and get a solution there. And we should, yeah, I would say in the next week or two.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So then as I showed you, so we have the indirect cost report. If we go back in, it'll just show you kind of the opposite on what we're doing with those projects. So it's going to be on the end user to identify, once you guys get into 2023, which ones are direct and which ones are indirect, and then do the coding appropriately. So the end users, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Melanie, all of the end users will have the ability to charge to a project. Only the 30 people, the group of 30 people, will have the ability to make the changes to this hierarchy that's going to start at the report header.
Correct.
Okay. And there may be something we can put in here as well, an audit rule or some kind of warning for the ITC group. If something gets filled in, just a general alert to remind them, hey, we're not putting any projects in until 2023. So that might help us in case somebody accidentally puts something in.
Yeah, Ted, that's a great idea.
Okay, so we can work together and find a piece of data that we want to key on and build an audit rule out.
Perfect, because they are on a different, they're not on a different policy, but they are on a different, we'll figure it out. We
It's
got
probably
it.
a different group, yeah.
Yes,
So I can put an audit rule on that group, and we can either make it a hard stop or just a soft warning, whatever you guys want, and then that should help us all the way through 2022.
perfect.
So those were the things, those are the major changes. So we're kind of doing the project in two phases. The first phase, we're looking at trying to get some data integrity in the site and making sure that we're able to assist the people in the back end who are doing manual work with these extracts. We want them to eventually eliminate that work. We know it's going to take a little bit of time after we go live, but eventually we want to get to phase 2 where we're going to be automating those extracts and making some cosmetic improvements to the site as well. So kind of a two-phased approach, hopefully the first one going live in the next week or two, and then we'll move into phase 2 after that. Are there any questions for me about the Concur site or the direct information that we're seeing in Concur?
Yeah, this is Brantley. I have a question, and this may be a question for Cindy. Currently, how they're putting the, I guess we would call it the project number, like, I just had it pulled up. Hold on. In that column, Cindy, where they would put like 13073 or 18068, that's what we refer to as project number?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so they will not be able to put that in there when we do this revamp at all?
Not for, they shouldn't be using it for FY22. For FY23, if it is a direct cost, then they would need to identify the project job number from the drop-down list in the second or the bottom half of the screenshot that Tad is showing.
Okay, because sometimes I use that number to see if the charges need to go somewhere else. So we're going to have to rely on those users that have the ability to make the changes instead of putting in that project number and saying, oh, well, I was in San Antonio and my home, market is, Austin. Instead of using that project number, they're going to have to get in their heads that that's where they would use the drop down. If it's one of the people that could make changes.
Correct. That's correct. So I envision, like, when Brianna goes to process something, she's not going to pick a project job number for the technicians for FY22 that are traveling, but she would be able to pull from the drop down business boxes that it needed to go to Profit Center 340 Austin or 350 San Antonio or whatever the case may be.
Okay.
Hey, Cindy, I have a quick question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just so between now and 2 weeks or so, whenever the new option gets added, what would your preference be for making sure that we direct cost to the right markets? Would it be like in the comments, or should we just hold off? Or
yeah, you could. I think you can still do it in the comments. That'll be fine.
That's going to be the fail safe to me. I mean, that's going to be our checks and balance.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Brianna.
One thing that may help too, so the labels I think will get confusing. So maybe I put project company, project division, project business unit. So we know these are related to projects versus our general hierarchy as well. So I'll make that change so it's more straightforward on the front end. Any other questions from the group? All right, I think we were about the same time yesterday. We were about 20 or 25 minutes in. If we don't have any more questions or anything else from the group.
Yeah, we knew it wasn't going to take the whole time scheduled, but we wanted to build in enough buffer for questions, you know, to be asked, because this is a change for ITC specifically. The other services BUs are already in that kind of mode of identifying direct versus indirect, and their jobs are you know, different from the setup that ITC has. So we wanted to make sure that you guys were comfortable in the direction and the understanding of direct versus indirect, and also Seneca's guidance on, you know, how to treat the rest of this fiscal year. So, Melanie, were you going to say something?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am, not a thing.
Sorry.
No, you're
I thought
good.
I heard you. Okay, so let's open it up one more time. I just want to make sure that if there are any questions, that we try to address them. We are available after the call as well, so please reach out. But are there any final questions, comments?
And Cindy, if you think I should, I can send the recording to each individual group that was attached to that calendar invite, along with your PowerPoint slide.
Okay, that'd be great.
Okay.
All right. Well, I don't have anything else, guys. If something
you all.
comes up, please reach out. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
All right, thanks
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you very
Bye.
much.
Thanks, Tad.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, you're welcome. Bye.